So, how your lacrosse hotbed can ruin your lacrosse goalie potential. Okay, so this was another conversation I had on Facebook before I went off on vacation. Um, so those of you guys that have known me and have been around me, I mean, some of you have been like have followed me for 10 years. You've got college goalies, and I knew your goalie when they were like 10 and or younger, I guess. Um, so you know that like one thing, I have my opinions, but I'm also open to other people kind of sharing ideas, coaching ideas. And if those ideas are good, I'm open. Like and one of the things, and I'll cover this a little bit later, but one of the things that I always told my athletes when I coach teams was like, I want you to get away this summer or whenever. I want you to go to an event, like go to a camp or clinic or a recruiting event and get around other coaches and then come back, tell me what you learned. Because why? Because one, the most important thing is I want the athlete to understand what's like I want them to take the knowledge they're learning and really make it their own, right? That's the first priority. The second priority, this like was for me as a coach, like I might learn something new, right? Now I've always tried to pride myself on being a coach that was like progressive, and because of my background, being from Boston, living in Canada, being an Olympian in a completely different sport, being a strength and conditioning coach, having a massive interest in sports psychology. I like to, I don't call myself like a lacrosse coach, not no offense to people who do, but just the point is like I just try real hard to come at this with a very different background. So one of the things that I'm very aware of in this sport is there are hotbeds of lacrosse, right? Where and some obvious ones are like upstate New York, Long Island's, Maryland's. You could probably add Philadelphia now, like into that uh, category. Um, there's, you could probably start to throw California in there a little bit. Um, but the idea is that that's where the sport has really started. Now you could use like, in hockey, for example, you would say like Canada is a hotbed, but like Hungary is not, right? Um, and what's really interesting, what happens is that when coaches kind of break away from those hotbeds and they go elsewhere, they usually have an opportunity to start fresh, like and to bring maybe new ideas and to bring to be exposed to other sports, and then bring those ideas to their sport. And so I made a comment in our Facebook group about how the coaching in a certain one of these hotbeds uh, is kind of dyed in the wool, right? And it's which means kind of it's hard to change, right? Like when you get dye in a fabric, it's really hard to change that color. Like once it's there, especially if it dries, right? If you ever get spaghetti sauce on your shirt, what does your mom tell you? It's like get in the wash quick before it dries, right? Same thing. Um, so, in terms of lacrosse knowledge and in sports of lacrosse goalie coaching knowledge, one of the things that really bothers me is that in some of these hotbeds, like there's coaches, like I know this for a fact. And this is hits home because I worked with a goalie this year in one of these hotbeds where they have coaches that think goalies shouldn't wear chest protectors because it slows them down. I'm like, really? You know, um, and then they think that the girls like wearing gloves slows them down too. Like, I mean, it's like, come on, guys. Like it's time to like turn on the internet, like read a book, figure it out. But so there was a dad in the group, and I'm not going to name the dad at this point, okay? Um, but he basically took what I said and translated as I didn't believe that anybody in that part of the country knew what they were talking about. That's not true either. Like really offends me. Like as not just as a coach, but as a person. It's like if you followed me enough to know I'm not that. I believe, and actually, I'm one of the first people to when people start saying like always or all the time or everybody, when they start using those. I actually wrote at athletespecific.com. I've got a report on like negative thoughts. And when you start to use that always terminology, like red flags go up in my head. Like that's just wrong. So so no, I don't believe everybody in that area doesn't know anything about the sport of lacrosse. Like really? Like, just click away. You're offending me, and you're obviously not going to get anything of what I have to say. So click away, right? But I've been doing this for long enough where I, I see all the Instagram coaches and the people popping up online over the last, like, 5-10 years, and I go, yeah, they're just regurgitating crap, like just the same old stuff, not very progressive thinking, things along those lines. And so in hotbeds, you're going to get that. Okay. So for those of you listening to me now, like a lot of you are coaches, a lot of you are parents with young up and coming goalies. Some of you have goalies who are about to get into college. Some of you are in college. There's college coaches that listen to this and never comment. And I get it. And they feel stuck in this, like, well, we'll just let the kids do what they got to do, and blah blah. Nobody has the balls or the lady balls to make a stand here. So what ends up happening is that when I, I've been doing this enough to hear the same conversations from parents over and over and over again, and the same doubts and fears and concerns, and then what ends up happening is that these same problems are year in and year out. And to be honest, I get kind of bored talking about it sometimes. Like, I go through phases when I do these Facebook lives every week. I'm like, really? That's We had that same question like last year and the year before and the year before that. But I guess if everybody knew what I knew, I wouldn't have a job. But um but as I mentioned in the first top tonight, lacrosse goalies haven't kept up with the sport. And the irony, so a couple thing, uh, hotbeds have what I call lacrosse incest. Okay. And and I wrote about this in my book, in An Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life. There's a business book that I read a number of years ago called Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got, written by a guy named Jay Abraham. And he talks about businesses and how, if so one business, like, let's say there's a pizza shop in a town, and there's another pizza shop in the same town, and opens up. And what they start doing is they start looking at each other. They start going like, oh, well, he's doing Facebook ads. And they go, oh, we'll do Facebook ads. And then they'll go, oh, well, they got delivery service. We'll do delivery service. So you got to realize, at one point, pizza shops didn't deliver, right? So they didn't deliver. They just made pizzas, and they advertised in the Yellow pages, and like, that was kind of all you could do back then. They dropped flyers on doors, things like that. But one day somebody got the idea that, hey, we're going to deliver pizza, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can't come to our shop right now. We're going to deliver pizza, and then that was a game changer for them. And what I can't stand is when I look on Instagram, or somebody sends me a clip, and somebody's at a clinic, and everybody's doing the same thing. What ends up happening is, if you're doing the same thing as everybody else around you, because that's the way we do it here, your only way to improve is if you've been gifted with some godly, like, physical advantage, right? Like, think of, like, when Usain Bolt came onto the track and field world, people thought that nobody with his height could sprint fast, right? And then all of a sudden he shows up, and he's tall and he's strong, and he blows people away, right? The same thing's going to happen in your sport. You're either going to be that kid, or you're going to get beaten by that kid. But from a parent's perspective and a coach's perspective, if you're in a hotbed and everybody's just kind of doing the same stuff, and this is how we do it here, then what everything defaults to is what I call survival mode, right? That's the coaching module. It's like, either you're going to make it or you're not, right? And if you're behind, there's a point where it's okay to be behind by a little bit, but if you're behind by a lot bit, well, you may as well just quit now, because there's nobody there that can support you, right? There's nobody there who's going to believe in you enough to say, all right, listen, buddy, I know that you're like 5'4". We've never had a goalie around here that short. Make it. So guess what? We're not going to help you. You want a coach who's going to help you, because I believe that's what good coaching is a coach takes your athletes wherever they are, at whatever stage of development they are, and they help them get to their next level. Okay. What happens in hotbeds is that those people are very rare, because the general group of coaches around them will go like, why are you working with that kid? We should just turn him into an attackman. Or maybe that kid's too slow to even play at all. Maybe they should find another sport. That's what my point was to my in my comment on this Facebook comment was that hotbeds are not really ripe to help an athlete who's outside of any bubble. Okay. Now, the hilarious thing, the irony is that when people are in a hotbed, one of the signs to know that if you're in a hotbed is that if you make a negative comment to what's going on within that hotbed, people get really offended. That's the first sign you're in a hotbed, and that's exactly what happened here. I made a comment that was kind of derogatory about this hotbed, and sure enough, guy jumps on me about like that. I don't know what I'm talking about, or no, I won't. I won't. That's not what he said. He didn't put those words in my mouth. The one thing that came up out of this at the very end of it all, because I kind of tired of the conversation, was this idea that hey, we're all just in a goalie community. We shouldn't be tearing people down. And I go, no, like you don't understand my position here because I'm looking at this and going, um, we can do better as a sport for the lacrosse goalie position. Okay. So I'm not, just because we're like all, brought together with the goalie community doesn't mean that there's some thinking that some of us are going to disagree with. Now, some people out there disagree with what I have to say. That's cool. I get it. And I'm glad to debate those people when they come forward. A lot of them don't really last very long. Okay. Because they default back to that, all right, well, shin guards make you slow. Well, shin guards also like eliminate a kid from even playing if they're fearful of the ball, right? And then again, that can happen at any age, right? So what I always find really funny is that the people that are in those hotbeds get really defensive about the thinking. Now, the one thing that I didn't cover, like I didn't touch on in the Facebook in the conversation, but I then went out and I did some research. One of the comments was that this gentleman said that from their hotbed, the best goalies in the sport have come from this area. And okay, I'm like, okay, so I don't like to compare generation to generation. I don't think that's cool. But the irony is that if you do a search, just a little bit of research, you realize that's not true at the collegiate level. And this gentleman also said that at the NLL level, that was the case. And you do a little research there and you realize that's not true either. And so what's interesting is that in hotbeds, okay, in hotbeds, what ends up happening is people get an inflated view of their abilities, right? And it's usually because there's just so many of them. And for lacrosse, like in hotbeds, there's lots of goalies, right? There's lots of goalies. Teams have, they have 3 goalies trying out for a team that's going to take 2, and they're trying to figure out like, what do we do with that third one? And that's okay. Like that's okay. Like your goal if your goalie's that third one, they've got to decide like, all right, I want to do this. I want to get better at this. I'm gonna figure it out. I may not make a team this year, but I'm gonna work real hard so I make that team next year. That's good. Like that's healthy. But the idea is that in a lot of hotbeds, that the idea is like, hey, we got so many kids, man. We must be doing great. Well, that's where, and again, I wrote about this in my book, this idea that sometimes the best athlete you're training to play against is not there. All right. So let me explain that. So as a goalie, I'm a big believer that the best team for you to be on is not the best team where you are. Right. I want my goalie, like I'm dealing with a goalie right now who they did not take my advice last year. This goalie has played on nothing but really good teams and his development's kind of stalled. And I warned them like last year, I'm like, you don't want to be playing on that team. You want to be getting on this other team where you're going to be seeing more balls and you're going to have to make more decisions. You're going to learn more, right? I call it, you're paying for lacrosse by the pound, right? And so what happens in hotbeds is that everybody starts looking sideways. You're looking at your goalie's looking at the goalie next to him on the field, and they're just trying to be better than that guy or that girl. And then the parents, you're looking down the sideline going, yeah, that goalie dad, he's like a doctor from wherever, and I'm sure they got more money. Then if I had money, my goalie would be amazing, right? Stuff like that, right? And so but the truth is, the better goalie is like in Florida or Ohio or Utah or Texas, right? And then you wonder why your goalie's getting passed over. It's because your attention's been the wrong place, right? And that really drives me nuts. Um, uh, you know, the idea here is that uh, you've got to be really careful that when you come in these hotbeds, when you come from these hotbeds and you're going to play, is that yes, sometimes that can help you be better, right? But a lot of times it just creates this complacency that you don't realize you have. Okay. And that's really, really difficult. The other thing is that this dad mentioned, like, hey, like, I don't know if you've been dealing with the college coaches in our area, but they're amazing. Well, what's interesting is like 50% of the college coaches in this area are not actually from that area, which is kind of cool. Um, but but I want to just kind of share with everybody that a lot of times, y- locally you'll get around like the local college coach, and everybody's like, oh, the local college coach is here, right? And what happens is the mistake people make is that they think that the coaches at the collegiate level, and then even within college, like Division 3, Division 2, Division 1, that the Division 1 coaches are like the best coaches. And that's not true. Okay. It's flat out not true. But what happens is sells tickets, right? If you're going to go to a camp and they make a list of like, oh, these are all the coaches that are going to be here, what do? Oh yeah, we're going to go there. I'm going to get my goal around that guy. Oh yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And my point is, like, in these hotbeds, a lot of the goalies I work with, all right, are the ones trying to make it up through that situation, right? That team or that area, right? Because they're not getting the support they need. Okay. And I'm here to tell you, and for those of you guys out there that you're working with goalies on the ground level, right? The idea is that um, is that college coaches reap the benefits of all the work that your local coaches put in, right? Coaches like me that work virtually, the local kid that you're paying $25 to for or for $75 to get some shots on your goalie, male or female. The idea here is you got to be very careful that you have like this infatuation that, oh, because we have good coaches around us, we must be doing no, it's the same thing. Okay, it's the same thing. Jason Edwards just writes, Salisbury, which is a Division 3 program, can whip a lot of D1 teams. That is also true. Okay. Um, so I've told this story. I haven't told it in a while. I'll tell it again. When I went to, so as a high school goalie, I went to the Cornell lacrosse camp because Cornell was one of the best teams in the country then. And Paul Schmoller was their goalie. He was also going to be the world team goalie. And I went there and I remember seeing a Division 3 goalie, a guy named Rich Barnes, who played at Cortland, who was practicing better than Paul Schmoller that day. And that was the first time I realized that, wow, a D3 goalie can actually play better than a D1 goalie in a certain situation, right? That's totally cool. But at the time I was like, oh, wait, you mean not all the D1 goalies are the best goalies in the country? You mean there's kids that go D3 that are better than D1 goalies? What? Why the hell would that happen? For a whole host of reasons. But I'm getting a little off topic there. But the point is that the idea, Michael Strasser, I see you, buddy. Um, the idea here is that wherever you play, okay, wherever you're from, I believe of all the positions on a lacrosse field, a goalie has the best opportunity to make their athletic dreams come true in this sport. So, like, if your goalie plays in, like, I don't know, pick your spot. It doesn't matter where you are, right? But if your goalie is seeing a lot of balls, right, and they have more opportunity to improve, you know, better than that kid who's in a hotbed playing on the team that gives up like 6 shots a game, like that clip on Instagram, like the goalie from Sweet Lax baiting the kid from 91. It's like, and everybody's on the goalie, like, why is the goalie standing like that? I'm like, I won't get into that today. But the point is that those goalies are not necessarily going to be great goalies. And so if your goalie is in some weird area of the country, you have an incredible opportunity to play to make those athletic dreams come true, right? Whatever they are. So if your goalie wants to play D1, great, go for it, right? Go for it. Work towards that, because it's really going to help you. Okay. Um, uh, Michael Strasser raised no doubt in regards to negative feedback and negative thoughts. I see that in hotbed areas also. Yep. In regards to coaching and support, Joel Rose writes, they aren't going to bet on anyone, but the sure thing that has been a paying customer. Colton's fighting through that now. Yeah. So that's, one of the things, if you're in a hotbed, right, and you've got to fight, okay, and I know I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but if you've got to fight to make it, man, that's so good, right? That's so good developmentally. Like if you can, if you climb, like I think I told this story a couple weeks ago, but if you climb all the way to the top of the mountain and somebody else gets a helicopter there, and all of a sudden a storm hits and knocks everybody off the top, well, the person that took the helicopter to the top, they might just quit. They may go, oh, this sucks. I'm not going to do that anymore. Right. It was hard enough to get up here on the helicopter to begin with. Whereas your athlete that had to grind and hurt and work and improve, I don't like using that word grind. I apologize. But the idea, if they have to fight through a little bit of adversity, that's great for them. Okay. Same thing true if you're, in the middle of like some weird town in the middle of nowhere, yeah, you can make that work too. So I just I just want you to realize that first of all, if you're in a hotbed, don't get offended. Okay, one, but two, just realize that you may be becoming what I call cream of the crap. Now that word crap will totally offend all the hotbed people, but the idea is that you can be the top of the bottom of the barrel. What the general rule is this: your goalie has to work to be the best goalie on their team, has to be the best goalie in their club, best goalie in their town or their region. And then you go for the region, and then you go East Coast, West Coast, whatever. You've just got to keep challenging yourself to know, yeah, you know what? I am the best goalie in my age group. And maybe you jump up an age group, right? Um, all those things come into play. You have to be challenging yourself like that as a family, as a goalie, as a family, as a program, and then know that you may run into very set in your ways styles and ideas about technique and performance, things like that. I got a question that I'll cover next week. The questions about like stance and technique and how much does that really improve your game, and I'll break that down a little bit about like what to work on, what not to work on, where the improvements can come, where they can't. The problem is in a lot of hotbeds is that a lot of people don't think, they don't question, they just see what the other goalie's doing. I'm going to do what that guy's doing. Oh, that kid went to college. I'm going to do what I'm going to play just like that. No, 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 no. Stop. Stop the insanity. Susan Powders, where is she now? She's probably Botoxed on some beach somewhere. Okay. So listen, I never mean to be offensive to anybody in any area. Okay. But I am going to call out bad coaching. And then what I'm going to bring up is I'm going to encourage a discussion about coaching, because it's better for you as a parent, you as a coach, your goalie, right? And then if you can out debate me on a topic and you can bring the data, right? I started out by talking about like we're in a very wealthy sport that has no money. Okay. We don't have pro leagues. We don't have good, big TV contracts. There's not a lot of research. That's why it's not trickling down. That's why we have to, you need, like someone like me piecing together other sports to go like, okay, this is reality, right? And let's improve the game, because goalies, statistically, lacrosse goalies have not kept up with the rest of the sport. Okay. And the best pro goalies don't come from the US, right? They're all Canadian. Right? Box lacrosse, sorry, not field, but we even have some Canadians creeping up there, right? And I believe the smartest goalie playing professional lacrosse, field lacrosse right now, is Adam Gittleman. I'll say that all day, every day. Okay, right? And so it's really important. So anyway, um, listen, if that made sense to you, do me a favor, leave a like. If you're watching this, the replay later, hit the like, leave a comment. uh, that helps the algorithm and all this stuff. It's really the juice that keeps us going. All right, and then yeah, if yeah, if, yeah, I don't know where else to go with that, but it's all good. A lot of people on Instagram. Thank you. All right, all right. All right, guys, thanks for watching and thanks for listening wherever you are. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you like this, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. When you're ready, head on over to lacrossegoalieuniversity.com/coaching so I can work with you and your goalie. And while you're at it, check out athletespecific.com to learn more about mental performance and high performance. You may not know this, but I work with athletes in a variety of sports. Lacrosse is my love, but man, I love athletes and the families who support them. So head on over to athletespecific.com, check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.